So today we are taking a look at the latest version of the ever-growing La Sportiva's Prodigio family, and it is the exciting new Prodigio Max. And you probably already guessed it, this is the maxed cushion version of the Italian brand's very popular trail running shoes. And it's also a trail shoe that I'm very excited to test out because I really enjoyed the original version, the Prodigio, and I actually laced them up for the South Downs Way 100 last year, and the shoes performed really well over that route and that challenging distance. And I'd also have to say this year the Prodigio Pro has probably been one of my favourite trail running shoes of the year so far. So it bodes well for this shoe on today's test run. I also think that this is an extremely good looking trail shoe in this sort of traditional yellow, black and red La Sportiva colorway. I personally think it looks awesome, but we all know it's not about aesthetics when it comes to our running shoes, it's performance that counts. So without further ado, let's dive into the video and take the new Prodigio Max out for its first run. So pretty excited for today's video because one, I'm going to be getting to test these bad boys out, and two, we are heading out on some epic trails today. So thanks for tuning in again. I'm Lloyd Purvis and this is Run4Adventure, your friendly, informative, running related YouTube channel. But let's kick things off with a few facts and figures about La Sportiva's latest trail running offering. First up, the brand say that the Prodigio Max has been designed to be the sort of deeply cushioned trail sibling of their more race-focused and brilliant Prodigio Pro. Now, I've actually reviewed those shoes on the channel, so if you are interested, I'll leave a link for that video in the description below so you can check it out. Price-wise, they come in at £145 here in the UK, which, looking at the quality of the finish on the upper, the midsole and the outsole, I actually think that's a pretty fair price for a quality, deeply cushioned trail running shoe. Weight-wise, my pair in a UK 10 tips the scales at 331 grams. So obviously, having a deep stack of cushioning in that midsole is not going to be the lightest trail shoe in the world. Speaking of deep cushioning, the Max comes with a 37mm stack height on the heel and 31mm under the forefoot, giving them a 6mm heel offset. And for me, that is just right when it comes to a trail shoe that's been designed to run long distances, because it's going to give me that little bit of lift when I'm fatiguing, but the heel isn't going to feel too dominant. And then flipping them over, they come with La Sportiva's friction red rubber outsole with a 4mm multi-directional lug pattern. As far as the construction goes, we've got a comfort wire upper, and that is constructed out of polyester and TPU yarns, and it does look like a very technical fabric, and I've got to say it, you really can't fault the quality of this upper construction. It's all finished off to the highest standard, and it's kind of giving me sort of Matrix vibes, and the fabric does feel and look very durable, so I think it's going to hold up to that trail environment well. We've also got a thin gusseted tongue design inside that upper. That's going to give you that nice secure midfoot lockdown, and then La Sportiva have worked in these little sort of zonal strips of padding down the center just to give you that sort of top of the foot comfort, and they actually look very similar to the padding setup in the Prodigio Pro upper, although the ribs in the Max aren't as pronounced. There's a moderate level of padding around the ankle collar and in the heel cup, and we get a good level of support in the back end of the shoe there from a substantial heel cradle. We've got some reinforcement overlays around the top and bottom lace eyelets, and we've got some stitching running down that lace system just for a bit of extra durability. And you also get some good upfront trail protection from a toe bumper, and personally I think this is a feature that all trail shoes should have. The midsole setup is La Sportiva's X-Flow Endurance. So this is basically a dual compound setup. So we have an ETPU inner core, and then we've got an X-Flow supercritical nitrogen infused EVA outer. So very similar to the midsole setup on Saucony's Exodus Ultra 4. So we got that internal core to give the shoe a little bit more pop and energy return, and then that's wrapped in a slightly firmer and harder wearing foam just to give you a little bit of extra stability and durability when you're running on sort of more technical and uneven trails. But pushing into the foam in the midsole, I've got to say it does feel quite firm, so it's going to be very interesting to see how that feels and performs once we're outside running, as well as adding a bit of extra cushioning to the midsole on the Max. We've also got a wider platform compared to the Prodigio Pro, and this is hopefully going to allow you to feel nice and planted, even though you've now got more cushioning underfoot. And La Sportiva have also worked in a very subtle sort of rocker geometry, and that's going to help you when it comes to running efficiency and forward momentum. And then lastly, let's talk all about outsole design. And like I've already mentioned, we've got a La Sportiva friction red rubber outsole on the shoe. And this is actually constructed out of two different types of rubbers. So we've got a harder, more durable rubber on the heel section there, and then a stickier, softer rubber under the forefoot. So this should provide a good level of grip on a big mix of different terrains. And I've got to say it, I've always been very impressed with the performance of La Sportiva outsoles over the years of testing. They've never let me down, always perform well on the trails of Cornwall. And then that's finished off with this U-shaped 4mm lug design. So reverse facing lugs on the heel and forward facing lugs under the forefoot. 4mm, not the deepest lug in the world, but it is nice and chunky in design, so should offer a good level of traction. And there you have it, folks, the all new Prodigio Max from La Sportiva. And I actually did a poll on Instagram and on YouTube because we have a lot of shoes in for testing at the moment. And I asked, which shoes would you like to see tested first? And these were a very popular choice. So there seems to be a lot of interest surrounding the Prodigio Max. So without further ado, I'm going to get the cameras fired up. We're going to get these on our feet, and then we're going to be hitting the trails. But they might not be the trails of Cornwall for today's test run. Okay, so you might have already noticed that obviously we're not in Cornwall, we are in Chamonix, France. Back in this beautiful mountain town that myself and Liga love so much. And you can probably tell it's a steep climb, and we haven't been here long because I am out of breath and this is hard work. So I'm actually taking the Prodigio Max up a climb that runs under the Agua de Midi cable car. So it's very steep, it's very technical, lots of rooted trails in the trees here, and it gets rockier as we get higher. So it's definitely going to be a thorough test for my body, my lungs, and the Prodigio Max. So the first thing we definitely need to talk about is sizing. So in true La Sportiva style, the Prodigio Max does size small. So I've gone up half a size to a UK 10. I think it'd be okay on a short run like this, but if I was running any distance in it, I'd probably want to go up a full size to a UK 10.5. I've got a nice secure lockdown around the midfoot, no slippage in the heel, and I would say if I compared it to the Prodigio Pro or the standard Prodigio, it's giving me a bit more depth at the midfoot and a bit more width in the toe box. So if you have struggled with the fit of the Prodigio Pro, this shoe is definitely going to offer you a bit more width and volume. But like all the La Sportiva shoes I've run in, the upper feels very comfortable straight out the box. So no irritation, no rubbing. The tongue feels comfortable across the top of my foot, and around the ankle collar and in the heel feels great. So first signs are the upper is fitting well and feeling very comfortable. Okay, so we're 2.5 miles out from the campsite. We're obviously still going uphill. So we've just popped out of the tree line, and it was forecasted, it's started to rain and it's supposed to get heavier. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn around from here, get a nice quick technical descent in to test the shoe out, and then pick up some more runnable trails, or else, you know, to get 6 or 7 miles in today is going to take me 3 or 4 hours. And to be honest, if you've been following the channel, I've been recovering from a bit of a foot niggle, so we don't want to overdo it, because this is the worst place in the world to be if you're injured. So like I say, we're going to head back down the trail and we'll see you back in Chamonix. Okay, I'm halfway down this descent, and like I thought, even though I've gone up half a size, this UK 10 is just too short. So I can feel my toes banging against the end. Like I said, for a short run like this, it's fine, but definitely need a full size up. And I really do wish La Sportiva could sort their sizing out and get it a bit more consistent. Okay, that is pretty much the run done. We are heading back to the campsite. Should be around 10k by the time we get back, and the rain has stopped as well, but I'm glad it came because it made a lot of those rocks really greasy. So it was a proper good test for the outsole on the Prodigio Max, and another great run in the Chamonix Valley. The body's starting to acclimatise and the foot feels okay, so it's a thumbs up from me. But let's get back to the adventure bus and then we'll wrap this video up with a quick conclusion. So you join me back in the Adventure Bus compact studio, a pretty cool place to film while we're out on the road filming content. Now, if you're new to the channel, you might not know that we actually took a standard VW Caddy Maxi and we turned it into the ultimate swamper micro camper over the last several months. And obviously when I say we, I mean I paid competent professionals to do it so that we got a great job, and we are over the moon with the finished product. It really is better than we ever could have expected. So we actually filmed a full build series. So if you are into van life or you're thinking about creating your own small camper van, then that series is well worth a watch. So I'll link the videos in the description below. But let's get back to the shoes in question, the Prodigio Max, and I managed bang on 10k by the time I got back, and I clocked up 1,200 feet of elevation gain along the way. So a good test out for the shoes and my lungs. And I've actually been in Chamonix for around about 8 days now, so the body is slowly starting to acclimatise and get used to that thin air, and things are getting a bit easier. But it always takes a bit of time, what with me living at sea level down in Cornwall. I had a really good mix of terrain out there on the test run, so I even had sort of 3/4 of a mile of tarmac at the start to get to the trails. And then you can see from the footage, I had some steep technical routed trails, some rocky trails, and on the way down, I even managed to find some more compacted, flatter paths to run on. So I personally think it was a thorough testing for the Prodigio Max, and they did a decent job. First up, let's talk upper performance. And like I mentioned on the run, very comfortable straight out of the box. So no rubbing, no irritation, so didn't have any hot spots or blisters by the end of the run, which I personally think is always a good sign when it's your first run in a brand new shoe. Nice secure lockdown around my midfoot, but more importantly, it stayed locked down for the duration of the run. So no having to sort of stop the run, pull over and re-tie the laces, which again, is another positive for me because that can be really frustrating at times. The gusseted tongue design on the Prodigio Max is quite thin. Now, in the past, when I've tested out other trail shoes with a similar design on the tongue, I have had issues because I think I've got quite bony feet. So I do tend to like a bit of padding in the tongue. However, those ribs of padding that La Sportiva have worked in down the center of the tongue seem to do a good job. So no comfort issues at all. The laces sat nice and comfortable across the top of my foot. As far as heel hold goes, again, nice and secure, no slippage, no movement or anything like that. So all in all, a nice, comfortable, good fitting upper on my foot shape. With this being the Max version of the Prodigio, obviously we get that deeper stack of cushioning in the midsole, but what I would say is if you're expecting that sort of bouncy, high energy returning ride that you get from a Prodigio Pro, this X-Flow Endurance midsole might leave you feeling a little bit disappointed because it definitely runs on the firmer side, and I'd actually say that ride quality is more like the original Prodigio but with more depth. Now, don't get me wrong, it was still comfortable on all the different types of terrain that I ran today, but definitely firmer underfoot compared to the Pros, which I actually think was a positive thing today out there on the test run. You can see there in the footage that it was pretty technical on the descent at times, and because we got that firmer foam in the midsole, actually offered me good levels of connection and ground feel, and for a deeply cushioned trail shoe, they actually felt very stable, and I'd say a lot more stable than the racy feeling Prodigio Pro, which can feel a little bit wobbly at times when you're running on technical stuff. So I'd actually say the ride quality is very similar to ASICS Trabuco Max 4, but I am hoping that the outsole offers a lot more grip and traction in muddy conditions on the La Sportiva shoe compared to the ASICS shoe, and judging by that lug design, I'm pretty sure it will. So final conclusion after today's first test run, and I actually think La Sportiva have added another quality trail running shoe to their existing Prodigio lineup, what with the standard Prodigio and the Pro version. But the Max does offer you something very different compared to the other two models. I think it's great that they've worked a bit more width and volume into the toe box and into the midfoot of the Max, because I had lots of viewers complaining about the very precise snug fitting upper on the Prodigio Pro, and they really struggled, and I totally understand because I haven't got a wide foot at all, and that upper feels pretty snug on my foot shape. I've also got to say about the brilliant looking build quality. This really does look like a well put together shoe that's going to handle those trail conditions really well. However, it is a real shame about La Sportiva's sort of sizing inconsistencies. Now, I know some other brands do struggle with this a bit, but I honestly think the brand are probably the most inconsistent when it comes to their sizing. And I think this is something they really need to sort out in the future, because it does make it really tricky choosing the right size shoe to go for. Now, obviously, these are just my initial thoughts after today's first run, and it's going to be really interesting to see how these shoes hold up to the miles. Unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to get any long runs in them just because they size too short, and I'd definitely have foot issues, especially on my longer right foot if I did some longer miles in them, which is pretty frustrating when you're trying to test out a pair of trail shoes. And on that note, it brings today's first impressions video to an end. Really hope you enjoyed it, and I really hope you found it helpful in some way. If you've got any questions about the Prodigio Max, please feel free to get them in the comments below, and I'll try and get back to them as soon as possible. And I also hope you enjoyed this conclusion in our cozy little Adventure Bus 3.0, and you enjoyed seeing me running out on some beautiful trails in the Chamonix Valley. Now, if you have already subscribed to the channel, a big thanks, it's really appreciated. But if you haven't, then it's definitely worth doing, and while you're there, why not hit that bell icon, because then you'll be notified when we upload any new exciting running content. And we got some awesome mountain running plans coming over the next few weeks, and you definitely don't want to miss it. But for now, guys, thanks for watching, thanks for supporting the channel, it's really appreciated. We'll be back soon, and as always, stay safe and keep on running. Together shoe that's gonna hold up to the trail miles well. So final conclusion after today's first test run. No comfort issues, and that tongue and the laces felt very comfortable across the top of my foot. As far as heel height,